I'm certain that we're going to end up talking about the bond package at some point, and so I'm really happy that we're in the house of the Lord for this conversation. As that y'all remember that as we have our discussion today. Would like to point out that we have Jim Clark here to support me, so thanks for showing up, Jim. Appreciate that. And then I want to point out a couple people from my staff, Matt Beasley and Evan Beeson. Without those two men, the office certainly wouldn't run as efficiently as it does. So thank y'all for your service. As we get started today, really I want to make this meeting more about you than it is me. I just want to point out just a few things that over the during the introduction it was pointed out that the Tea Party groups and the conservative groups in Montgomery County rallied behind me and really helped carry us to victory in 2012. And when I ran for office, I told you that I was going to do certain things. And those promises that I made way back then, I'm happy to tell you that we kept those promises and we fight for them every step of the way. And some of that is improving transparency. My personal belief is that our citizenry, you men and women, have the right to know how and why every decision is made, not only at the national level, but all the way down to the local level. That's not always, that's how I view government and how I think government should operate. That's not how everybody does. And so, you know, we have people on the other side who believe it's more like a sausage factory and that all you want is the finished product. Well, I think you want to know what's in that sausage before you eat it. So I try to fight every day to bring about transparency and to talk with you about what, how, and why decisions are made to the best of my knowledge, why those decisions were made. So a couple of things that, how many of you are really familiar with what a commissioner does every day? Do y'all want to hear about that, or do you want me to just kind of skip some of those things? Because just kind of at a high level, just so you know, all 254 counties in the state of Texas are set up the exact same way. They have 4 precincts, equally divided based upon population. Each of those precincts elects a commissioner. Each of the 4 commissioners each precinct has their own commissioner, and then there's a county judge, and that is what makes up the legislative and governing body of the county. So it's 1 county judge, 4 county commissioners, and they really set the agenda for how your county is going to operate. On that, Jim and I now working side by side, literally, in chairs 3 and 4, and we do from the top down. We set the tax rate for the county. We budget for the county. We budget for all the elected officials within the county. We set policies and procedures that the county is supposed to follow. We engage in contracts, and we do things like propose a road bond for you people to vote on based on if you feel like the projects meet your needs and if the amount of debt and the quality of the project meets your satisfaction, then you vote yes, and if it doesn't, then you don't. Some of the things that I've done since I've been on Commissioner's Court, first of all, I've served on HGAC, both the Transportation Policy Council and the board. And I know there's probably a lot of people in this room, like Ginger, she loves HGAC. She can probably tell us all sorts of different things about HGAC, but it really doesn't matter if you like HGAC or if you don't. That's the only way we in the county have to go and try to bring some of those federal dollars that we all send to DC, try to get some of those dollars back down into our local projects. And so that's what I advocated for while I was on that on the Transportation Policy Council and the board. And probably the biggest thing I did was the South County Mobility Study, where we sat in a room for 2 years. Matt Beasley headed that up for the office, and it was comprised of a group of individuals from the township, Shenandoah, Oak Ridge North, TxDOT, Harris County Precinct 4, Montgomery County Precinct 3, some citizens from the east side of 45, and the goal was to put a comprehensive short and long-term mobility plan together for the greater South County area. And we did that. In doing so, it was really easy for us to pull a project list together with prices and data explaining why these projects are needed and put that before you for a vote for this bond. So that's just one of the examples of how working with HGAC provided some benefit for us, Ginger. So
There's no oversight.
Me, I was the oversight. A couple of other things that I do to try to engage the public is going and speaking to meetings like this as often as I possibly can, attending HOA meetings. Some of you in this room sit on my Commissioners Advisory Council. I know Rosemary does. And that's a group of concerned citizens. We meet once a month in my office. We rotate it between a morning meeting and an afternoon meeting. And all we do is talk about what's going on in the precinct, what's going on in the county, what are things that you would like to see me undertake as commissioner, and how are we doing. Other things that we do is the Commissioners Advisory Council are kind of the first to see when I'm going to go out and do a series of speeches on a particular topic. I typically test it out on them first, let them kind of tell me what's good about it, what's bad, where we can improve, where we can't. So really, they're a sounding board, and they provide some really good advice to help keep the citizens involved in the governing process from the commissioner standpoint. A couple of things the commissioner doesn't do that people always think we do. Number one, there's no zoning. We don't provide water service in Montgomery County, and we don't maintain state highways. In particular, county government generally does not approve or disapprove of land use. So when Jim's putting all those apartments in precinct 4, it's really not Jim, it's the developers do it. He really can't tell them how to develop their land. And I face that all the time. People will call me and they don't want a storage facility to be built here. They don't want this apartment complex. And you know, we all fight for individual property rights, and sometimes we have to respect those property rights even if we don't like what they're building with them. And so keep that in mind when that apartment complex is going up next to you or some other entities that you may not approve of. And other things that you can't do, we got a couple more people walking in. We have Judge Craig Doyle and Charlie Riley, a couple more supporters. So, and maintaining state highways is something else we don't have any control over. So for precinct 3, the state highways that touch me are 2978 and then I-45. Commissioner does not have ordinance making authority. County government is limited by state statute and the Texas Constitution. A couple of Montgomery County ordinances that we have on the books that we're allowed to have bow hunting, discharge of firearms, and some towing regulations are just a few examples. So, a couple of other things. Your tax rate, some of the services that we provide, the sheriff's office and the jail, the 5 constable offices, the district attorney's office, the county attorney's office, fire marshal, juvenile justice center, the 7 district courts, 5 county court at laws, 5 justice of the peace courts, office of indigent defense, the county attorney, both real property and child protective services, as well as the commissioner's offices, environmental department, engineering, county clerk, district clerk, tax office, emergency management, 7 libraries. So when we're spending your tax dollars, we try to spend those dollars as conservatively as we can and try to make them go as far as possible. And when you think about the amount of taxes that you pay for the services you receive, hopefully you understand that we try every day to spend those dollars as wisely as we possibly can. Now, the reason why I think we all wanted to come together today was specifically to talk about the road bond. And what I would like to do now is kind of open that up to you. We talked a little bit about the mobility study that we put together. Evan has copies of that for those who want to receive them. So really the best way to kind of jump ahead would be for you guys to start asking some questions and lead in. Yes, sir.
Sir, my name is Phil Katie. I actually have a very strong feeling about this bridge.
Bridge, this 242 overpass?
Yes.
The flyover?
I feel like the residents of Montgomery County, with this being a toll road or a toll bridge, have really been stiffed. And what's next? The rest of 242? Is that going to be a toll road too? Is that the big picture? I mean, I don't know if I don't think you were in office or a part of that.
No.
And it was a precinct 3 commissioner that's in his district that had that bridge set. My understanding, I don't know how the whole thing came about, but Man, I can't believe that a toll bridge went up to ease traffic for us, that we have to pay for that.
No, absolutely. I wasn't part of that decision-making process. It happened long before I came on board. And I will tell you that, generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of toll roads for multiple reasons. But there are times and places when toll roads make sense. And that question will probably be better addressed at a later time by one of the men who made that decision, perhaps Judge Craig Doyle. Yes, ma'am.
The extension to Woodlands Parkway to 249, I'm really concerned, and I think it's in one big package, right? We're gonna break it out at this point.
No, I don't believe that the commissioner offering that package is
The
interested in taking.
throughfare, the increased traffic on that road, first off, nobody goes to speed limit, I'm okay with that, frankly, but, and enforcement's not very good, and I'm still okay with that. But 8,000, 6,000, 5,000 more cars is gonna be atrocious. Secondly, when there's a wreck on Woodlands Parkway, more near the lake, there's no place to turn around. So if it's a serious wreck, and you bring in life flight and they have to investigate it, traffic is gonna be jammed on that thing for 2 to 3 hours till it gets moving again. There's no place to turn around, there's no place that there's a gate you can open and turn traffic around. That's just gonna be a big cluster, and I think I'll work to see it defeated, the whole bond issue, even though the other roads probably are more than likely needed. But I know I myself will work to defeat it, because I just think we don't have any, we're losing our small town as it is. I mean, that's just the price we pay, but that's just gonna make it worse. And I among others, will probably work to defeat the whole bond issue. And I guess my comment to you, if you think it's that good of a deal, the commissioners, they ought to pull it separate and see if it is.
I will tell you, you're not the first person to raise a concern about the extension of Woodlands Parkway. And the concern grows really every day. And there's been a whole lot of conversations about studies and exactly how many cars are going to travel up and down the parkway. And I think you're missing the point when you try to count cars. If people are speaking to you and you're spending their tax dollars and they don't want the road, you probably should listen. What's frustrating about the whole process is we have one road that threatens the greater mobility of the entire county. And I would like to see it pulled back, and let's pass a bond to keep this county moving and address this one road separately. I think that's a more responsible way to handle it. When you're trying to make a decision for the greater good of the people, and you see that 2,600 people roughly have already, or 2,500 have already signed a petition against it. In the last road bond, you had only 14,000 people countywide vote in it. I think it's sending a really strong message. Yes, sir.
Commissioner, this is a $350 million bond.
Mm-hmm.
You did a study that you really appreciate the transparency on your website. That goes back, what, 2 years?
Mm-hmm. 2 years is about how long it took.
Does the county engineer provide any guidance in that area? Do they have a list that they maintain throughout?
Yeah, our county engineers since I've been there, I've seen them very involved in the mobility plan that we have in place. I've seen them working with the other commissioners to put together plans for their precincts. I chose to go about it differently. It doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. And I was doing it really for a hands-on way for me to sit down, get my entire community together, and spend 2 years in the same room with the other elected officials and leaders to put together a plan. And it's worked for us. We feel very confident and comfortable with it. But I think each of the other commissioners that have their own package of bond roads for their bond probably feel the same way.
Okay, and how long, since the other guys are here, how long did you guys spend on your plans? 2 years, 2 months?
Working on some of mine for 14 years.
Charlie, you only been in office.
I don't know how much we can answer, because there's a lot of members of our court here to avoid a quorum issue. I'm here more as an observer than anything. I don't know
Okay, all
what
right.
questions we
Well,
can
the
answer, what we
question-
can't.
The thing is he's put his plan on the website. I looked on everybody else's website and I didn't see a plan. And from what I've heard, this plan that the other guys had has only been around for like 2.5 months. And I'm just wondering how, apparently, according to your plan, you only got half of what you were asking for, right?
Well,
According to the paper?
I don't think anybody got what they need, to move, to do all the projects that they need to do.
Okay.
And I think $105 million is a huge step in the right direction. I mean,
I don't disagree with you. As a matter of fact, it's obvious that the Woodlands need, looking through the HGAC study. I'm concerned about the other $240 million that we just decided to split 4 ways roughly. Is that a statute required by the county to split bond money that way?
no, and we, for the first time ever, I think the commissioners really worked hard to allocate funding differently. And we got more money in precinct 3, 25 million more than precinct 2 and precinct 1. And 21 more million than precinct 4. So I think we tried to allocate it better. It's one of those things where I think if you put too much money in one precinct, you alienate, precinct 2 or 1 or 4 from voting for it. So I feel comfortable with the 105 million. It's not as much as we would like, but I don't think anybody has every dollar amount that they want to have. So,
Well, the thing is this is why we're in the problem federally and locally, is because everybody wants to play nice with everybody else and make sure that they get the vote to go through. I don't want you to have to be in that position. I feel like you are, from that perspective, because I know that we need to get stuff done in precinct 3. I know there's some stuff that Jim needs in precinct 4, 242, 13, 14. I'm not sure that ditches fall under that category of a bond. It seems to me like that ought to be general maintenance, but what I know. I just think there ought to be more discretion about what these other guys are doing. Because when I look at this list in the paper, and a lot of it looks like state road type money, and maybe it's matching, where are their studies at? I don't see their studies on their websites. I don't see the support for the information, for the amount of money that we're gonna give to them.
I mean, I understand, and I think that's a question you have to take up with each commissioner and ask them. I have, I think the 4 of us have a hard enough time managing our own precinct and roads and.
Granted, but you voted for it.
Oh, I voted
So
for it. I mean,
I'm-
and I
They're
voted.
here as observers, so I understand the quorum issue, so.
But I voted for it because I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, you elect me to be the precinct 3 commissioner. My job is to health, safety, public welfare. I look at the roadways, I see the conditions of them, we put forth the study. We know that these challenges need to be met. And I think it's very responsible to ask you, the taxpayers, do you want to support this or not? I mean, it's not like we're unilaterally just issuing this debt. All we did is vote to put it into your lap and give you the chance to agree with us that we need a bond, or to say, no, we don't. And so I stand behind giving you that opportunity. I think that's what you put me there for.
Can I
Yes,
jump on
sir.
that a little bit?
Go ahead.
So you said we've, and this is some of the things I don't know. I mean, how much, I don't feel like there's a lot of discussion before the vote at the county office, at the Commissioner's Court. But I don't know everything that goes on. What kind of interaction was going on? Because I heard one of the commissioners at a chamber basically say we need this, and that if we don't get this, we're going to have huge problems. And the way it felt to me was, okay, this is what we need to do, and let's get it done, help me get it done. And I'm like, where was the discussion with us, the payers of this thing, you know, what we need and how much, and there didn't seem to be a discussion. It seemed like it was a conclusion by Commissioner's Court, and then, okay, let's go get it done. And one of the comments was, our roads are just going to be terrible. I'm driving out of the parking lot, and I'm thinking, I don't have to wait for a car. I just pull out and go. And I'm thinking, if you want to see troubles, go to Harris County. They have troubles. It takes me 15 minutes longer when I go back and forth to work because it does bottle up during, the traffic area. Anyhow, those are just thoughts. But I guess the question is, where was the discussion? Did it happen in these small little groups, that you had? Or do you know of other things where that happened?
I would imagine that each commissioner was actively engaged with his precinct in soliciting support for the bond package. I know that's what I did. And then the commissioners put together this bond committee, and my committee members were Gordy Bunch and then Joe Michaels from Oak Ridge. And the committee then worked to evaluate all of the bond projects for the commissioners. And they're the ones who worked on trying to put together a package that they felt would be the right amount for the county. You guys elected me and I support the Tea Party wholeheartedly, but I was actually, if we're gonna do this, I thought we should have a bigger bond package, because I think now the time was right in order to do that. Now, other people didn't support that, and I respect that, and that's what we all have to do, because if other precincts don't want to support a larger bond package, then we need to try to work together to support something that will work and will pass. But I can't specifically tell you, what each other commissioner did. And again, my way is, that's how I do things. It doesn't mean it's the only way or the right way, it's just how I do it.
James, before we go further, on the Open Meeting Act for the state of Texas, the commissioners are not allowed to talk with one another about individual things or about anything when there's more than a quorum, but they are allowed to speak individually to the organization, any organization or group. That's the law.
Okay.
Thank you, James, for the work you have done for our precinct. I live in the middle of the Woodlands, and I am against the extension of the Woodlands Parkway. My question to you is, can that be pulled, the extension of the parkway, can that be pulled from the road bottom?
My interpretation is yes. At this point, the court, we have not formally adopted a list of projects. Until we do and make a contract with the citizens, then yes, any project could be pulled. And,
Someone told me that it could not.
well, I'm not an attorney, but that's what I was told by an attorney. So,
Pulled after the bond issue is passed, or pulled from the package?
pulled from the package now. Like this next court session, I plan on taking my project list and submitting it to court to just be formally adopted or accepted, by the court into the county records.
How do we get that pulled from the bond?
I think you would have to talk to the precinct commissioner who's over that precinct. That's a precinct 2 project.
What does the ballot state, though? The ballot is what we're voting for. If we vote for the entire project at $350 million, you can spend that money any way you want to. That's your discretion, because it's not specific on how that money is going to be spent. You may have a plan, it may be prioritized, priorities can change, we all know that, but there's nothing holding you to that. So that comes back to that overpass.
I guess your word is your bond, and if I tell you that these are the projects that Precinct 3 is going to undertake, we have a list of funded projects and we have a list of unfunded projects. And if we come in under budget on the funded projects, then we'll move some of that money down to unfunded projects. If we find a partner to help us with a funded project, we can move some of that money down to an unfunded project. And as somebody stated, we have no shortage of projects in Precinct 3, so that's why I put them out there for the public to see. Yes, Mark?
James, how much more money did you need for Precinct 3 than what you got?
I think I was asking for $150 million for this particular package, And I know, matter of fact, on the way over here, an engineer called me and we were talking, and I was told that there was some concern that I was unhappy with the amount that we were offered, and that's where some of this criticism regarding certain package or a certain project came from. And that's not true. I feel like the court really tried to work to get a manageable bond put together, one that we all thought would pass. So the size of that has nothing to do with it. And again, I think every commissioner would like to see more money. We're just trying to do it in such a way that it hopefully won't require a tax increase down the road. Yes, John. Larry.
2 questions. If the bond does not pass because the extension is in there, what happens with all the projects that needed to be funded? What's going to happen in that regard?
I'm glad you asked that.
And then the second question is, as Bob said, and you answered it already, I guess, is that your word's your bond, because legally you can do what you want to with that money.
I'm glad you asked, and everybody in this room, we all drive these roads every day. We live in Montgomery County because we love Montgomery County, most of us. We eat here, we shop here, we play, we pray, bring our families in and out of here. It's only going to bring more and more people into this county. They come here because it's great. We have to do something in order to keep this county vibrant, to keep us, our sanity in check. None of us like sitting in traffic. The bond is really too important to fail. I mean, this is something that I strongly believe in. No, I don't like the Woodlands Parkway project personally, but that doesn't mean that the bond all should fail because of one particular project. Other commissioners may think the same about a project I have. Maybe somebody doesn't like, something that we're doing. But I would ask you to give great consideration to a bond that's going to help our friends on the east side of 45 move around, and help our friends in Magnolia and in East County and in West County. And I'm not just saying this because Craig and Charlie walked in. I planned on telling you today that the bond's important, and we have a controversial project on it. And certainly, best case scenario, let's pull it off and move it to the side. That's my suggestion. That's not Charlie's suggestion. That's not somebody else's. So, I mean, you're really going to have to visit with yourself and decide, can you support this if that's on there? And I don't want to lead you down a path either way, and I respect your decision either way.
But specifically, what you put out a projection of roads that need to be, you got to have some money to do that.
Yes, sir.
So if this bond issue does not pass, how are you going to complete your projects? How are the other commissioners going to complete their projects?
We won't be able to, and maybe I wasn't as eloquent as I was hoping I would be.
Last bond?
Last bond was 2005? 2005.
11?
Is that the
2011?
Well, 11 was the...
Is that the one that didn't pass and then they did?
Yeah, 11
That's
did
right.
not pass.
That's what I was wondering.
No,
That was
real-
11.
Real quick, if the bond doesn't pass, then we won't have the money to do any future projects. However, if it doesn't pass, we can always put it back on the agenda in November. So we have an option, but you need to know that I spent 2 years putting this package together because I know we need it, and it's going to be your decision now. Yes?
Hi, thank you.
Mhm.
I've read or heard that the extension for Woodlands Parkway was planned 30 years ago. And I understand from your saying that's correct. Was the route that was planned, for that planning, was the route named at that time or planned at that time? And my question is if it wasn't, why not consider Hardy's Store Road to get to 249? The road is already built there that could be used and improved to make that, instead of, another route if there's one plan.
Yes, as I understand it, when the Woodlands Development Company purchased, or George Mitchell purchased 50,000 acres for the Woodlands, Woodlands Parkway was going all the way through. I don't know if it's the exact route. Everything up 30 years from now, things will be drastically different. The development company sold all that land in 1998, and when they sold the land, they kind of abandoned the idea of the parkway because it wasn't important to them any longer. They didn't own the land, they weren't focusing on it. I think that's why some people didn't know that was the plan. So it was out there for a long time. Once the land was sold, it was kind of forgotten by a lot of people, not everyone, obviously.
Yes, I'd like to know, I've seen a breakdown on the roads out precinct 4. And I noticed 17.2 million for Sorters Road. Sorters Road is not that big. What is 17.2 million going to go for on that road?
I think you need to talk to Jim, the precinct 4 commissioner, after this is over.
Okay, because it's a small road. So,
Okay, according to what Bob said, can you
Well,
address that?
And I want to apologize, 'cause I've got another meeting to go to. I'm not getting mad and leaving in about 10 minutes.
so I speak with
You
you.
better speak.
But anyway, that road, I mean, that's right-of-way acquisition. It has to be 4 lanes. I mean, it's a long, long stretch of road.
Yeah, but there's no problem with it. I haven't seen it. I mean, I've lived there all my life.
Well,
There's no problems on it.
the only problem is it's, packed with traffic, and what we're trying to do is to create another
Well, see,
relief off of 1314, go down to the college. And right now, it's not a real safe road. We have a lot of accidents, a lot of wrecks and stuff down there. And
So far, I mean, since I've been there, I haven't seen no problems as far as traffic and stuff. And I've been there 20-something years.
I'll leave you a card, and we'll talk at length about it.
Okay.
Well, another question while.
But if anybody else wants to ask Jim some more questions,
I do.
following
Better catch it. 8 million in ditches, how come that's not part of your regular maintenance?
Well, right now, I've got 863 miles of road, and I can afford to pave about 10 to 12 miles a year, just depending on what we have to do. And, I mean, we've got areas that are flooding, and I don't think it's exactly $8 million, so, to me, I came in, I've lived here all my life, so I know what some of the concerns are. Anybody can tell you about 105 East and how far behind the curve we are on that. We finally got passing lanes out there, and 242 at 1314. But just to be honest with you, my list was $126.8 million. I could have spent $200 million and still not fixed all the problems. I had whittled it down to that number, and we came together as commissioners and decided that we can't afford to have a tax increase. Nobody got behind the last bond issue and it failed. And one of the things I ran on in my campaign was, the old saying is that build it and they will come. Well, we didn't build it and they're here. I mean, we've got critical problems. We can't afford to let this bond issue fail. And I just did the best job I could. I got the advice of our county engineer. I got the advice of other engineers. I went out and talked to local leaders, the head of the chamber, and a local insurance agent.